Okay. Can you hear me too?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, uh, before MA, what did you study? Did you study English honors? What was your graduation on? Is it English honors?
Hello.
Uh, Before MA, what did you study in your graduation? Did you study English honors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that means you must have studied Pride and Prejudice.
Hi. Yes.
Yes, so the
Jane
same
Austen.
the same thing we are going to do.
Okay, sir.
Uh, uh, I hope you can remember what is there in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Yes, the Pride and Prejudice from divided in 5 units. Okay, we'll just do it quickly since you have studied it already. It is sort of revision for you that of something you have already studied during your graduation. So just looking back to what we have done in the previous class, that was on block one, Middlemarch by George Eliot. We just did some what to say the summary and also theme-wise analysis of the novel. And this is how the chapter units are organized of block three. Okay, just the tidbits about Pride and Prejudice, right? As we all know, it was an 18th century novel, and how do we call this? Just after this was the period, when the literary sphere was moving from the Romantic period or the Romantic movement to the Victorian. Uh, then since you are an English honor students during graduation also, I think you remember the basic difference between the Victorian period and the Romantic period. What we saw in the Romantic period was like the writers and the poets basically were focusing only on their imagination, right? The imagining things and what we call that romanticizing things, making things of the of real situations like very unreal things, right? So in this period, Victorian period, we see that that nature of literary work were moving towards a reality, a bit of reality. So for the third point, if you if you see realist novel development, and this period, the novel was taking place very in a realistic way in a way that the storyline, the plot, the sequence of events, the incidents that are happening in the plot in the story are like what to say, very realistic, very relatable. It is like we can connect them with our own personal or practical experience. So that is Pride and Prejudice is one of such text where it deals with Mrs. Bennet's very tension of not being able to get getting her daughters married off, which is very, even after 200 or more than 200 250 years, it's still relatable to us. So it is also the last point for what we can say. Pride and Prejudice is also a social critique, right? It criticizes the mindset of the people in society, like as represented through the character of Mrs. Bennet. and Mr. Bennett as well. So units in unit 7 we have in unit 6 is the introduction of the novel. In unit 7 we have the development, right? The development in terms of what to say here. As a work of literature, how it developed, how developed and matured literary work, Pride and Prejudice is, and the major themes it has. Why it was called development? Because it talks about the position of women in the society, right? The how we can improve, right? The position of women in the society. It deals with that. So that is one point, and it also deals with the education and and so-called accomplishments, quote unquote. Because before that, before romantic period, the women were often that there was very strict gender roles in English society, right? That there are certain rules and regulations in real life that women, these are the certain things that only women should do, and these are some other things that only the men should do. So things like the women's were basically only the, what do we say, that being restricted to the activities like the domestic everyday chores. So if we look at the storyline and the activities being done by the characters in Pride and Prejudice, this is a much more advanced way of representing. The other major theme that another major theme that the Pride and Prejudice offers is the property right, the right to money and property, especially the right of inheritance. So what we see was that it is even today in our Indian social setup that only the male people are legal, male only the men have the legal rights to you know to get the inheritance, get the generational wealth of their parents, grandparents. So the same thing here it happens. We will understand this as when we will be summarizing the story. Yes, this also Jane Austen also shows the marriage, the social institution of marriage as a transaction, not only as a social practice, rather as a transaction, right? The transaction. So it also talks about how ideal marriage should be and how ideal marriage should come to. Uh, Before moving to the next chapter, yes, I mean the unit, let us see the Bennett family. Basically, this novel is all about the problems that are being centered around the Bennett family, the Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Bennett. What we see, two husbands and wife, Mr. Bennett and Mrs. Bennett. Mr. Bennett is somebody like very careless. He's very intelligent but funny. Who he speaks very less, and he has very big estate called Longbourn estate. Very wealthy person. But when it comes to family responsibilities, he's like, okay, jo hoga dekha jayega, right? Doesn't matter. They are having Mr. and Mrs. Bennett are having 5 daughters, right? And he's Mr. Bennett is like, okay, they will do. My daughters will do whatever they wish to, right? I don't have uh, any right to stop them or all these things. Mrs. Bennett, on the other hand, is always tensed up, always worrying about only one thing, just like the Indian mothers, right? Or any other mothers maybe. She's worried that we are having 5 daughters, none of them has got married yet. How can we do, right? It is one thing. She's always worried, mentally, occupied by the thought of getting all her daughters married off. That is one thing, because as a parent, she wants her daughters should get married. And the reason behind is that as already mentioned, Mr. Bennett is a wealthy person that when he dies, if he dies, Mr. Bennett dies, the the property, his generational property will go to their cousin. Okay, their Mr. Bennett's cousin, and Mrs. Bennett and her daughters will be left without any property. So for that, if the daughters are married and get children and all these things, they will be able to get the inheritance, get the generational wealth after the death of Mr. Bennett. So for this best, and for Mrs. Bennett is very like also comic like her husband. That's the only thing that the matches. She's very energetic, very talkative, and yes, her it is like her aim in life is to find wealthy husbands for her daughters. This is the only thing she's always mentally occupied by. So the Mr. and Mrs. Bennett have five daughters. The eldest one is Jane, the eldest daughter Jane Bennett. The second daughter is Elizabeth Bennett, who is the actual heroine, the protagonist of the novel, who is very intelligent, very witty, independent. And it is like the feminine by nature. So the third daughter is Mary Bennett, the third daughter who is very studious person, you know who is very studious. He keeps on studying, very serious, and who is also socially excluded, doesn't believe in adapting to social positions and these things. And the next character, I mean the daughter, the second, the youngest daughter is Catherine Bennett, and she is very pliable. Pliable means that very easily, somebody who can be very easily manipulated by others' thoughts and others' words. But we see, she keeps on developing and keeps on maturing herself as a character till the end of the novel. And the youngest daughter is Lydia Bennett, and who is different from all the others. Even though each of them are quite different, she is very flirtatious, and some she's like she wants to do whatever, like it relatable, right? All the characters. It's like basically how the youngest siblings in our families, behave or carry the mannerism, just like Lydia. So she is very reckless, nonchalant, and sometimes she wants to do whatever she wishes to. So just like that, she, after all, runs away with George Wickham, who is like the villain of the novel. So these are the Bennett family, and uh, you know. Let us begin with the storyline, the summary. In the volume one, what we say, establishing the context. The first point which says that the context is that uh, it is like Mrs. Bennett's tension, right? Mrs. Bennett's tension of she's very desperate to marry off her five daughters, because the reason I said, if Mr. Bennett dies, their estate, their wealth will go to their cousin, their male cousin. So she is looking after, looking for the good, grooms for her daughters, and just looking one for young man after the other, then after the other. And her famous line, the novel begins with, she is frustrated after looking. What she says, a single man in possession of a good fortune. This is what she said. She looked for everywhere, but finally she's frustrated in what she says. Single man in possession of a good fortune. She said there is not a single person who is good as a human being also, and having the lack of the wealth. So she's frustrated. That is the context. And Bennett family already mentioned. Then the story begins when Mr. Bingley and Darcy arrive in the place where Bennett family was residing. So what it happens? There was something called of and a party sort of thing, which is called Meriton Ball, right? Meriton Ball, which was a party sort of thing. So Mr. Bingley is somebody who is very rich and and very charming. And what happens is that he somewhere fell in love with Jane Bennett, the eldest daughter of the Bennett couple. And in the same meeting of Jane and Elizabeth, both the sisters were there, and since Mr. Bingley, somewhere quickly fell in love with Jane, and his friend Mr. Darcy was there, but it was expected that Mr. Darcy would be what to say, also be falling in love with Elizabeth, like his friend. But Mr. Darcy says that okay, she shows some attitude, rude and proud of himself, sort of things, and he says he comments on Elizabeth, very sort of harsh comment. What he says, quote unquote, tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me, right? Tolerable but not handsome enough to tempt me. This is what Darcy said. So now this comment Elizabeth cannot take anymore. Elizabeth took it as an insult, for her, and sisters hating. So this is where the problem begins. The clash between, as the title suggests, the pride and prejudice begins here, because the attitude and the comment of Mr. Darcy, reflects the pride about himself that he has. And that comment, after hearing that comment, Elizabeth now is interpreting the comment as the thing as, Darcy is a bad human being, bad guy. So that is the prejudice. She is doing the prejudice against, Mr. Darcy. So this is where the title comes: the pride and prejudice. The pride of Mr. Darcy and the prejudice done by Elizabeth Bennet on, what to say, on the Darcy's comment. So now some suitors come. Suitors means the some young men, some characters come across, what to say, to to offer proposals to the Bennet daughters. The first one is Mr. Collins, right? So Mr. Collins is basically the Bennet's cousin, especially the cousin to the Bennet sisters, but he proposed Elizabeth. She proposed what to say, Elizabeth, but Elizabeth rejects Mr. Collins' proposal also. The reason, Bennet, Elizabeth Bennet, she always says that she will choose perfect, groom for herself. And regarding Mr. Collins, she says that Collins is all about himself. Always, he loves himself, and always, what to say, somebody who does not care about others, perspectives, others' opinions. So Elizabeth says that she cannot get married to somebody who does not understand others' perspectives, but only loves himself. So Mr. Collins is rejected. So Mr. Collins immediately gets married to Elizabeth's friend, Charlotte. Okay. Then comes Mr. Wickham, the sort of, what to say, villain in the novel. What he does, Mr. Wickham, he now comes and tells a lie to Elizabeth. Elizabeth was already hating Mr. Darcy. Now, Wickham tells that he also hates Mr. Darcy because he says that Mr. Darcy cheated on him also, that he is all his generational wealth that he was supposed to get from his parents and all were now going to be taken by Mr. Darcy. So Mr. Darcy is fraud and all these things. So there was already a clash between the hero and heroine in the novel. Mr. Darcy comes up with a deceptive story and makes the problem larger. Now, what happens after that? Now, it was now taken into consideration that Bennet and Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy are never going to be together, never going to be in love, never going to get married. But with everyone's surprise, Mr. Darcy happens to have proposed Elizabeth. That shocked everyone. And Elizabeth outrightly rejects the proposal of Mr. Darcy, telling that it was an insult on her because Mr. Darcy already commented her as not handsome enough to, or haunt him, and also Mr. Wickham also told a lie. Now telling that you, Mr. Darcy, you are very proud, you insult me, you insult my family. I reject your proposal. Now somewhere Mr. Darcy, uh, okay, this is here, the first proposal, and rejected. So Mr. Darcy understood what had happened. Now understanding what must have gone wrong, Mr. Darcy writes a letter to Elizabeth explaining everything what had happened. In the letter, he explained everything that the story that told by Mr. Wickham was lie, and Mr. also told through the letter that Mr. Wickham is what to say, somebody who is very active in gambling and okay, who is a liar, a gambler, and all these things. And after reading the letter, Elizabeth actually realizes that Mr. Darcy is a good man, and what to say, he can be trusted. So after that, somewhere they start coming, clues. The closeness started. What to say? They started coming closer. Now Darcy and Elizabeth. In the meantime, the youngest, sister Lydia happened to have, run away, eloped with Mr. Wickham, who is now is, what to say, the reputation of the Bennet family now is on the verge of getting ruined because their youngest daughter has run away with Wickham, the notorious gambler and the liar. Now what will they do? Now there was chaos in the family. There was this disgrace in the family, that all the family members are not happy now. So here, Mr. Darcy comes to show his heroism. Okay. Now, what heroism sort of thing? It is because the heroism in the sense that Mr. Wickham is a gambler and liar, and also he had taken loan from many people. He was under a high debt. Now, because of this only, the Bennett family wasn't happy that their youngest daughter or their youngest sister Lydia has run away with somebody who is some who is liar, some gambler who has taken loan from many people, and who is to pay a lot of debt. Now, Mr. Darcy comes out to save the reputation of Bennett family by paying off all the remaining debt of the loan money, by returning all the loan of Wickham to the respective lenders. And while doing that, he did not let anyone know about this. Mr. Darcy did not let anyone know that he actually paid off uh, what to say the loan of Wickham, Mr. Wickham. So here, when these things were, what to say, resolved, at the end, Mr. Darcy finally, with with more humble manner and more, formally, Mr. Darcy again proposes Elizabeth, and they get engaged. Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy ultimately get engaged at the end of the novel. So the at the end of the novel, the resolution and the conciliation, which is a requirement of a novel, that comes as all the the Bennet daughters like Jane also married to Mr. Bingley, as Elizabeth now getting engaged to Mr. Darcy, and Wickham, no, Lydia also somewhere married to Mr. Wickham. So the resolution ultimately comes, and Mrs. Bennet's the wish of getting her daughters married of also it is also come into realization, and somewhere she is somewhere now sure that the wealth, the inheritance of uh, Mr. Bennet after his death will be handed down to her daughters. So this was the story. So could you understand the summary? Somehow, could you understand the summary? Okay. Now, after the source summary and analysis, we can just let us look, or make pay an attention to this story through some theoretical perspectives. Basically, there are many theories can be applied, because this is one of the all-time best novels ever. So the first thing, obviously, the feminism, the feminist theory, right? Because Elizabeth's character is today, it is still being praised because of the perspectives, the voice of feminism, the voice of a strong woman that she says, right? Because her rejection of the societal passive rules, in the sense that the system was that the women are to play the passive rules. Passive rules means that when a male person offers a proposal, the girls usually did not have the right to turn down. They were bound to accept the proposal. But Elizabeth does that, defies that social rules, and she rejects multiple marriage proposals. So Marxist theory also we can apply here, where we can use the marriage market, this matchmaking in the in the in the marriage ritual as a social institution, which has been used as a commodity, that as a capital, what we see in Marxism, that Marxism studies about this capitalism and all these things. The same thing here. Here the marriage is used as a as a capital, right? through marriage only the generational wealth of Mr. Bennett would be, handed down to the next generation. So we can look at these things under, the framework of Marxism also. And the other theory we can apply is the post-colonial theory, right? Because of the influence of the characters like Mr. Darcy, which is directly, you know, uh, what to say? It is like the, you know, the nature of colonial rule and, of the British Empire. So what does post-colonial, theories talk about? Post-colonial theories talks about how, the bad things, the bad practices being done by or being applied by the colonial rules. It is something like that. Darcy comes out to, save the reputation of, you know uh, Bennett's family by paying the loan of Mr. Wickham. It was a generosity of him, but he also had a purpose. What was the purpose? His purpose was to, get married to Elizabeth Bennet. Hadn't he paid the money, maybe Elizabeth would not have accepted his proposal at the end. So therefore, that is also one thing we can look through the post-colonial, uh, understanding post-colonial theoretical framework as well. So again, considering the things, the tidbits that we talked about, so you can look at these questions if you can solve, and then this is what we are going to deal with in the upcoming lecture. That is E.M. Foster's A Passage to India. Okay. So this was our class for today, the last class, and if you have any question, you are free to ask. We can again go back to the slides and we can again discuss.
Sir, once again, repeat the summary.
Which part?
Last part.
Last part.
Yes.
Uh, Last part means okay. Last part in the sense of what? Which one? Which part? That Darcy's proposal.
That's his proper. Once again, screen show the screen.
Okay. You tell me how where you could not understand. From here,
Yes.
the story begins from this point. If you can see, can you see that I'm marking here, blocking here?
Establishing the context.
Okay,
From
establishing the context only means that the background of the story. Okay, I already mentioned the background of the story. Uh, it is that it begins with Mrs. Bennett looking for, perfect groom or wealthy, husbands for her daughters. Her desperation to, of getting good, husbands for their daughters, and that, things, the actual things begin with when Mr. Bingley and Darcy arrive, and they meet with two, Bennet daughters, Jane and Elizabeth. Okay, so when Mr. Bingley sees Jane, the eldest daughter, for the first time, he just fell in love at first sight. And they were two friends, Bingley and Darcy. The same thing was expected from Darcy also, that he would also maybe, uh, fall in love with Elizabeth, the younger sister. But that did not happen. Darcy somewhere, showed attitude telling that she is good but acceptable, but not, good enough to tempt him. So this comment has, made a very sort of bad first impression between Elizabeth and Darcy. So here, then the Mr. Collins comes up with a proposal to Elizabeth. His proposal was also turned down, and then Mr. Wickham comes up with a with a false story telling that he was cheated by Mr. Darcy. His deceptive story now even expands the distance between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. And after that, Mr. Darcy now proposes, uh, Elizabeth, who shocked everyone. Okay, and now his proposal was, as expected, rejected by Elizabeth. Okay, because Elizabeth says that it is insult to her family. She also said that he Mr. Darcy interferes too much into the relationship of her sister Jane and Bingley. So his proposal was turned down. Then Mr. Darcy writes a letter to Elizabeth explaining the stories, the false story told to her by Mr. Wickham. That Mr. Wickham is what Mr. Wickham told to her was all wrong, all lie. It was false story. Actually, the actual thing is that Mr. Wickham is a gambler, is a liar, and has taken lots of loan from many people, and he hasn't paid anyone yet. Okay. Then through this letter, Elizabeth realizes that Mr. Darcy is actually not a bad human being. He can be accepted. That changes her mentality, and they become closer now. In the meantime, the youngest daughter Lydia runs away with the notorious Mr. Wickham. Okay, now through the letter written by Darcy, uh, entire Bennet family came to know all the secrets of Wickham. And after knowing all these bad things about Mr. Wickham, their youngest daughter happened to have run away with him. Now there is chaos in the family. They took the thing as a disgrace, and they were, very worried that the reputation of the Bennet family will be ruined now. People will make fun of them, and people will make fun of their family, and all these things. And there, uh, Mr. Darcy comes up to pay all the pending loan of Wickham without telling anyone. So it indicates that now Wickham is free of, he's debt free from repaying the loans, and he is not so bad as as people may have seen. And this generosity shown by Mr. Darcy now ultimately creates an good impression about him to uh, what to say Elizabeth, and subsequently Mr. Darcy proposes Elizabeth, and they decide to get engaged. So this is how the novel ends. Is it enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Uh, if you try if you can prepare answer to those questions given as given as SEGU progress, and you can message in the WhatsApp group also if there is anything that you couldn't understand. And
Okay, sir.
the slides will be shared anyway. And thank you so much for attending. If you do not have any question, you may leave now.
Okay, sir.
Thank you once again for attending. See you in the next class next week.